I couldn't have said it any better myself. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian podcast. As always, my name is Rory and I'm joined by my very good friends
Adam and
Francesco.
Hey, come stai? How we doing, boys? Francesco, how we doing?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to looking at the action of the week in the Premier League and previewing the weekend's action with the big game on Sunday. And you can guess from the colors we're wearing, although it's not the Juve shirt, the colors are the same. And Adam is wearing the one of Inter because that's the derb italia coming on.
Yeah, the tensions are building already. Tensions are building. I think we're all excited. Adam, how are we doing, man?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I was debating between this and a yellow tie and a yellow suit just for the occasion because we know it's transfer deadline day. So I don't know if it's the same in Italy. I have seen some variation of transfer deadline day of Italy as well. But yeah, obviously we haven't got the same kind of atmosphere here. It seems like all the business was in Serie A today in particular, Rory. So we'll be talking about that later. But yes, Rory, more importantly, how are you doing this fine evening?
I am very good. I'm very good. I kind of woke up with the foolish optimism of Arsenal pulling out a last-minute Benzema loan move or something that was going to, a David Ornstein bomber, but nothing happened really. We've managed to ship off a few people that would be quite welcome to go, but still, Cedric is still at the bloody club. He somehow clings on. He's like, honestly, it's incredible. So he's still at the club, but we have managed to get rid of Renarson. I think Lino Souza has gone to Villa, and there was someone else who I can't remember. Oh, Marquinhos, maybe we're desperate to get rid of. But yeah, we managed to get rid of a bit of the old deadwood. But yeah, no incomings. Anyway, we'll get onto it. I'm a bit disappointed we haven't got a striker. But this episode, there is loads and loads and loads to cover. We obviously have a full programme in the Premier League this midweek with lots and lots of talking points. Liverpool looking class, or were Chelsea shit. I couldn't decide which one it was. I think it might be both. Arsenal broke their hoodoo by winning at the City ground, finally. And of course, Spurs versus Brentford. We'll be talking about Mopai versus Maddison, the box office fight that we all want to see, and we can say which side we're on. And then in Serie A, we'll be talking about all the transfer news. It's been a crazy busy day in Serie A. And of course, we'll be looking forward to the big game at the weekend as we have Derby d'Italia, the title decider, maybe the first step to the second star for Inter, maybe, who knows. But we will be talking all about that and a transfer roundup as well. So guys, if you're ready, we're going to go for a very quick break and come back with the Premier League. Should we do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Hi, my name is Dimi Konstantopoulos and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
All right, here we are. It is time to talk Premier League. We had a full programme. The football never ends. And we're going to start all the way up in the Northwest in Liverpool. I think this was by far the game of the week, really, the one that everybody had their eyes on. Darwin Núñez managing to take more shots than the entire Chelsea team, I think, and not managing to get a goal. But it did finish Liverpool 4, Chelsea 1. Liverpool looked incredibly, incredibly comfortable here. But before we talk about Liverpool, I want to talk about Chelsea. And I was pondering them today and thinking about their performance last night and what I witnessed. And Adam, for you, the worst thing for me, and I want to see if you agree, is that there seems to be zero sign of progress with Chelsea.
Yeah.
There seems to be they've not got any further down the road than when Todd Boehly took over. It just seems to still be completely treading water. And the second they meet any team that's anywhere near good, they just fall apart.
Yeah. I mean, it was when I went for a review of just reviewing the clips today before we kind of went on air, it was shocking how poor the discipline was by the players, how badly they were out of position. They made it so easy for Liverpool to attack. I mean, I know we'll kind of be superlative about Liverpool in the way they dispatched Chelsea, but we have to kind of highlight how poor Chelsea were. And if this is a run-up to the final, Chelsea could be very much embarrassed at this final. This was awful to watch from a Chelsea perspective. You can understand why Chelsea fans gave up any hope really after this match, because they are starting to really call out Pochettino and they're really demanding Mourinho, which is, it's incredible to think that a bloke that hasn't got much of a reputation elsewhere, but has got this love rapport with Chelsea, is the man that they deem as someone that's going to come in and change their fortunes. But you kind of have to also maybe say the players need to own some of that performance. They were the ones ultimately on the pitch. And, you know, when you think of how much has been spent on that team, I'd be cursing at this team right now. I mean, they've just not shown any cojones about the way they've gone about it. It was embarrassing. It was just purely embarrassing. And that performance, I think, was just lightly tipping it. I think it should have been more. You know, Nunes hitting the post and bar various times. I mean, his shots, like you alluded to. And I think that, you know, we can talk about Liverpool in a bit, but they just had to do the basics. And I think they were fortunate in the way that they gave Chelsea a goal in this match. I think, you know, they should have been concentrating a lot more. But back to Chelsea.
We do have to say it was a very nice finish from Nkunku, and if they can get Nkunku fit and playing, then they've got a very, very good striker there. But Francesco, for me, what was most concerning, and it kind of talks about how the club is run, is that the best player on the pitch for me was Conor Gallagher, and he's the player they've been desperately trying to sell for the entirety of January. Like, does it point out even more about the flaws in their recruitment that still, despite all the money they've spent, the best player on the pitch is an academy product?
I mean, it's really strange when you look at Chelsea. It seems like in the past few years since Bowley arrived, they've just basically been buying the players that were the most expensive, or to players that everybody wanted, and they were just matching any offers that they were asked to pay, without really thinking of what type of team they were buying, creating. Now with Pochettino, I think there's definitely, as you were saying, no progress being clearly seen in the way they play. But as we were discussing, I remember saying that in football, there's not really the same approach that there is in other sports of trust the process. So I think give time to someone who arrives in a team. Like, think of all the players that Chelsea offloaded in the summer window to Saudi Arabia, but also other teams, to make the squad lighter, and they still have a very young squad. So I do recognize, and I do think that because they have that price ticket on them, some of them should perform a bit more, but they still have room to improve. And I think the fans should give a bit more time to a team that hasn't really been doing that well, regardless, in the past few years. They have that title of being Chelsea, so there's a lot of expectation. But if you're in the process of rebuilding your team, you have to give them the time in order to accomplish it without expecting that you're going to win again in the first season or sort.
Yeah, I think part of the issue, though, with Chelsea is the fact that they have been so accustomed to instant success. Like, they sack a manager, they win the league. The manager wins the double, they sack him, they win the league again, whatever. Like, the system that Abramovich had put in was chaotic, but it was very, very, very successful, right? And I think these fans have become accustomed to managers getting in and doing jobs very quickly. And with teams that maybe necessarily they didn't pick, or players they didn't pick, or teams that aren't suited to them, they've come in, done a job, won cups, won leagues. Even not even Sadi, he's a very good manager, but even Sadi, who was very, very unpopular, went in and won the Europa League, right? You're welcome. But so they're used to that instant success, and I think that's what's going against Pochettino. But I think the most concerning thing is that there's just no sign of improvement. Yeah. We do also have to say, though, that Chelsea should have had 2 penalties, I think. I think the first one on Conor Gallagher is a Stonewall penalty. I cannot believe that isn't given. And the Van Dijk kick through Nkunku, I don't think it's as Stonewall, but I think I've seen them given in 5 or 6 games this season. Yeah. Like, Adam, do you think Chelsea fans have a right? Like, obviously, the performance was terrible. They had no right to win this game. But both those decisions came at very key moments in the game. Like, it was 0-0 when it was the first penalty decision. Then it was only 1-0 to Liverpool when the second penalty decision came, I think. So it was both at key times. Do you think Chelsea fans have a reason to be, like, annoyed about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, there definitely is an opportunity that if that goal or penalty is given, then potentially that sways the way the match goes, potentially. But I think on the balance of it, I think Liverpool were just too powerful in the respect of their quality. They were too much for Chelsea in that respect. So I think they would have got back into it regardless. But yeah, decision-wise, probably you could say they should have got at least one of those decisions, definitely. On another day, they probably do get it. And it's a bit weird that they didn't get it, but these things happen, unfortunately. There's sometimes decisions that shouldn't go their way, and they do get them. So, but I also think this also goes down to highlight a bit of Pochettino and that mentality at the moment, that they still haven't got that mentality to overcome those kind of decisions and make the most of the kind of possession that they have sometimes. So, yeah, it just baffles me that they still persist with Cole Palmer up top. It's just baffling, but it goes to show you that he's got very little trust in the current forward line that they've got available, right?
Yeah. Because he's been playing a lot better, not up front, like on the wing or in that number 10 role. He's been absolutely killing it. So I don't know why you would put him out of position and decide to kind of take that form away from him, or kind of try something that, if it isn't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But I think, again, maybe this does point to what Pochettino's doing at the moment. It's just because there's no clear direction, he's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what works, right? And it's like, maybe like me on Football Manager when I'm struggling, I was like, if I move this guy into midfield, will this make a difference? Please? Exactly. Like, if you're just moving things around a screen hoping it'll work. Like, so I think I kind of get that vibe from it at the minute. But Liverpool fans will be very annoyed. One in particular, my cousin, will be very annoyed that we are consistently apparently not giving Liverpool enough credit. I've heard on WhatsApp from him several times. So we need to talk about Liverpool. This was an incredibly impressive performance, particularly from one player, Conor Bradley. He's kind of been forced into the team through injuries. Obviously, the injuries to Trent and to Tsimikas have kind of forced Klopp's hand, and he's given this guy a start. He was on loan at Bolton last season, I want to say, made 41 appearances. By all accounts, kind of impressed. Bolton fans were very pleased with him. But I don't think anybody expected him to have such a good start to his Premier League career. Every game he's come in, he's looked incredibly comfortable, incredibly accomplished. And this game, he got a goal and 2 assists, I want to say, or a goal and an assist. And absolutely bossed it. Like, Francesco, were you impressed by this young player? And Klopp is bringing a few through at the moment.
I mean, what a goal. I mean, the finish was that of a striker for someone who plays at right back. And this is one of the first games you're having in the Premier League, and you manage to put the ball in the back of the net with such ease. It definitely shows a lot of promises. I think Liverpool were brilliant. I mean, regardless of the penalty shouts that Chelsea had, even though it was at key moments in the game, I think Liverpool was still dominating, and they probably wouldn't have gotten scared by having a penalty against them. Darwin Núñez up front was just creating so much chaos in the defense. He does that all the time. He just run a defense with that, they call it garra in South America, that the Uruguayan or Argentinian players show. And that just opens up the space for two wingers such as Luis Diaz or Jota to come and do their thing. They score, they have the space, they find a way to get in. Now even the midfielders with Szoboszlai or McAllister, I think they're clicking so well together, thinking that they're doing it also without Salah, who has been key for them in the first half of the season. Is really impressive and showing that they're really up for giving as much of a challenge for the title to City. So it's definitely an exciting team to watch at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think, as you said, that front three in particular, like, I thought Luis Diaz was absolutely incredible this game. I thought it really put Mudrik's performance into perspective when you saw just how many problems Luis Diaz managed to cause Chelsea. Obviously, he's had a bit of a tough time recently, but it's great to see him back in full form. Like, I remember just the sheer excitement of when he first came into the league and being like, whoa, who the hell is this guy? Just tearing defenses apart. And Adam, it kind of feels like he's getting back towards that and he's starting to cause problems again, right?
Yeah. I think there was always that kind of element that he was going to come back to his best in terms of his football, especially after the trauma that he had with his dad earlier in the season as well. So I think, you know, it's great to see him back showing the potential that he can do. But I think it was also helped by Darwin Núñez as well, because he was able to stretch those centre backs as well. calls himself a bit of a menace at times. And, I think you phrased it a few weeks ago really well. He's just chaotic, isn't he? He's just like a Tasmanian devil. You just don't know what to expect from him. But when he can deliver, he's just superb. He just looks world class on his day. It's just on those days when it doesn't pull off or goes wayward or almost hits Ashton Witt in the face, for example. Then it looks.
Yeah, that was.
Looks
I'll tell you what, that was
hilarious.
pretty much pinpoint. To be fair,
I thought that was quite accurate for him. To be fair, so he done quite well. But I just wanted to pull out one stat about Connor Bradley as well that will highlight maybe a different player, but Anthony in 17 appearances has no assists and no goals. And Connor Bradley has got, in just one match, got 1 goal and 2 assists, which is already better than Anthony. So never mind.
I just heard Manchester United have offered 150 million. They've just offered 150 million. They're just before the deadline goes. Yeah, it's incredible. Honestly, it's incredible. I was really impressed by how much he's come in and just looked so comfortable. Even like, I know Bobby Clark comes on towards the end and again causes Chelsea problems, and like these players are coming into the team a little bit, and Jurgen Klopp is really trusting the youth, and it's good to see. And it's like he's just able to take risks with this team. He's able to go like, you know what, they're getting in positions where you can give 10-20 minutes at the end of a game to someone, if you know what I mean. I also just wanted to say Ibrahim Konate again was fantastic. There was some defending that he did was just unbelievable. Some of the first touches, being able to like, his press resistance and being able to keep the ball
just
and
reading
find
of the
pass.
game as well.
Yeah. I thought he was
Superb.
just unbelievable. So fantastic performance from him. And Curtis Jones, once again, very good performance. Diogo Jota, a very determined goal. It got there in the end. It kind of felt more by accident than by design, but it was a very, very nice goal for him. Again, just incredible run of form. Having someone like that off the bench and kind of as a backup that can come in and have this impact really gives Liverpool a lot of strength. Just from an Arsenal point of view, I am very glad we're playing them at the Emirates and we've already played them at Anfield. It's the one positive I can find is that, okay, we're playing them at the Emirates. That is a positive. At least we're not heading into this Klopp wank fest going into Anfield. That would be even worse, I think. But incredible performance from Liverpool. Awful for Chelsea. But what did you expect, really? Well, I think we're going to leave that game there, maybe. Yeah. And let's go to Tottenham 3, Brentford 2. Neil Maupay versus James Maddison. Now, I think James Maddison might be the most mentally fragile player there is out there because he gets rattled very, very quickly.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
When Saka did the dart celebration against him, he lost his shit. Do you remember when he ended up shouting at Jeremy Clarkson on Twitter because Clarkson had said he needs to spend less time in the hairdressers and more time playing football? I feel like he needs to just take a step back and be like, it's not that deep, James. It's not that deep. And when you come up against a world-class shit stirrer like Neil Maupay, you have to just accept, you're never going to be able to compete. Just leave it, let him do what he's going to do and just accept defeat. My favourite moment, though, is James Maddison thinking he's got one up on him in the post-match and going, he's just not scored enough goals to have his own celebration, for it to then be blatantly clear that Neil Maupay has more goals than him. And on Instagram, he says, I have more goals and less relegations. It's an absolute final kick in the nuts. So Neil Maupay definitely won the battle, but unfortunately lost the war as Tottenham won 3-2. A bit of a weird performance from Spurs, especially in the first half. It looked like Brentford were kind of easily the better team, I think. Tottenham didn't really have that bite. They couldn't get control of the game. It didn't seem like they were playing at their normal flow. But then fair play to Ange, second half. I think he's very good at this. He knows how to affect games, and he makes substitutions, and it did change the game. But if we look at the first half, like Francesco, you said you were quite impressed by Brentford. You thought they were relatively decent, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen clips of the game. I've seen the highlights, and looked like they had a few occasions to go more than 1-0 up, and that they were doing their usual set piece shenanigans that always seems to create so much trouble for the Premier League teams. Despite Brentford being in their third season in the Premier League, they're somehow still not manageable and still difficult to handle for any team, which is impressive. But then I think, as you said, Ange just managed to bring on the right players at the right moment to turn the game around. And the Tottenham took the game away and finished by winning 3-2.
Yeah, I think the first, the goals were like 48, 49 and 56, right? The second one goes in, they're just rolling then, and it's kind of all about confidence, isn't it? But Adam, they're now the top scorers in the Premier League. This is a very, very, very entertaining and attackingly effective team, right?
Yeah, when you're not containing them, then they are just explosive. They just have this nature. We saw Ange do this with Celtic, and he's starting to see a flourish of that kind of behaviour now happen with Spurs. I think Werner's now kind of proving that was quite a shrewd bit of business. I mean, you can see he's getting his sharpness up now, and on moments against Brentford, he just looks like he was on a mission to try and just tackle down that wing and just bring it into the inside of play. And you could just see that it was almost like triangles that they were doing, just bombing the ball between the three and just walking. And it's just that kind of rhythm. They seem to be just completely bought into that system that Ange has introduced. But you have to say respect to Brentford to change it up. And almost I think Ange summed it up perfectly. He kind of said that they paid too much respect to Brentford. I think they were wary of what Brentford could do, especially on set pieces. And, when you've got two live wires like Ivan Toney and Neil Maupay, it's not going to be a straightforward match for those defenders as well. So, I think they were probably paying too much respect in that first half, but like you allude to, the substitutes did make the impacts. Brennan Johnson starting to prove that he can do something as well. There was a lot of criticism before, like the last few games ago. So, I think it's starting to pay off really well, and they've done some fantastic business in this window as well, which has reinforced, I would say. I think they're better off now than they were before the window actually started. So that goes to show you they've been very astute about their business. And I think people should be worried about what they can do going forward as well, because you think Son's going to come back into this. I don't know how he's going to fit, who is he going to displace, but that's a bit of a nice dilemma for, Ange. Maybe, do you know what? Maybe he gives Son an opportunity to rest. I mean, that in itself
absolutely
could be huge for them right now as well. So I mean, in itself, I think people are going to be very wary of Spurs, but there is an element that there is something to be got at with Spurs still. I think there's an element that if they play a high line, they're going to stick to that principle. So, Chelsea proved that you don't have to play fantastically well, but you can exploit it as well. So yeah.
Well, listen, I think at some point there is going to be a compromise when it gets when they start challenging for things and when they start kind of getting involved in races. I think there will be compromises, but for now, it's incredible football to watch. I am very worried about what they could do if that does help. It does worry me, but I think the point on Son is very interesting because obviously Spurs have just been for the last couple of years. Kane and Son have to play every minute of every game, otherwise they can't win a game, right? And for them to be able to even take him off after 70 minutes would be a luxury. It's like Arsenal with Saka, right? We have to play him every minute. If we could take him off after 70 minutes and bring someone else on. It would solve a lot of problems. So I think this does kind of, as you said, it has to be a good thing for Spurs. So a very, very good win for them. I do just need to say, though, I think Brentford, some of their behaviour in this game was genuinely embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
There was a lot of games, if you're being polite, you would say gamesmanship. But I think the fall from Nathan Collins in the area is genuinely embarrassing. I think that leads to the goal being disallowed, right? Because it gets called as a foul. It's definitely not a foul. And it seemed like their only plan for the game was to just wind Spurs up, which I can fully get behind, but I don't know if that's how you win games. Do you think, Adam, that Thomas Frank maybe got this one a little bit wrong in terms of man management or the conduct?
Yeah, it's not something I've associated with Brentford either. It's not necessarily with their kind of game. Yeah. So for them to kind of change to this kind of philosophy for this particular game seems a bit odd. Obviously, they must have crept up on this kind of thought based on something that maybe the tactical analysis saw. But I personally wouldn't have gone down this line. I mean, they seem pretty level-headed, I would say, generally Spurs. I mean, if you're doing it to Christian Romero, I could understand you're probably trying to get him a red card, right? But they were doing it at people that I don't think were going to naturally kind of react necessarily. And I think that was just, badly kind of thought out. And I'm a bit disappointed in that respect because first half they actually demonstrated that, you know what, they can play a bit as well, and they've been one of the best in terms of set pieces as well. So they should have played to their strengths, I feel, sometimes, and especially with Ivan Toney. You should have been looking at how you can exploit that defense and get him into those kind of positions. So I think there was definitely a missed opportunity, especially the position that they're in as well. It's not a position where they can afford to throw away these kind of games just for the sake of trying something different. I think they should have gone with a game plan. And first half, maybe they should have just carried it through. But unfortunately, it just folded, didn't it, for them?
Yeah, and the last thing on this, Francesco Vicario is becoming a bit of a cult hero at Spurs. He, of course, got in a fight at the end with Ivan Toney. He apparently said, "I hope you didn't put a bet on the game" at the end of the match to him. I think I've read that somewhere as a quote. They said, "I hope you didn't put a bet on the result," and that caused a huge fracas on the pitch. Francesco, is it good to see? Are you enjoying seeing Vicario doing so well at Spurs? Because I think he could be Italy #1 ahead of Donnarumma at this rate.
It's good to see him perform so well, especially he's coming from Empoli, which wasn't not a big club in Serie A, so nobody really had any expectation. I think that helped a lot. There wasn't so much pressure. He was replacing Lloris, but people didn't really know what to expect, so they couldn't really judge him until he started proving himself. But I think he's definitely will be one of the most consistent player of Spurs this season. And I was also quite happy to see the performance of Udogie. I think he's been doing very well at Spurs. I think it's very important for Italy to have now a few options in the left flank with him and Di Marco. That's definitely a good problem to have on who to pick for Spalletti.
Yeah.
He's starting to push a bit more forward, which is good to see. Scoring goals, assisting. He's always been solid defensively. Still think he can improve, but I'm happy to see both of them perform well for Spurs.
Yeah, it is good. It's great to see. Well, Vicario was a player we were talking about on the pod last year when he was at Empoli. We were like, someone should be looking at this goalkeeper. He looks he saved them. They were always in trouble, Empoli, and he saved them a lot last year. So it's good to see him doing so well. I was really annoyed when he went to Spurs. I was like, oh, that's a really good signing. But we're going to leave Spurs and Brentford there, and we're going to go to, before I am self-indulgent and we talk about Arsenal, I forgot about arguably the biggest result of the week. Luton Town 4, Brighton 0. This was not, I don't think Ivan Toney had this on his accumulator. I would be very surprised. But Adebayo hat-trick. Interesting little dig here for no reason. He's got a Premier League hat-trick before Marcus Rashford. Bit mad that. But his first Premier League hat-trick, goals in the first minute, and Irish wonder boy Chiedozie Ogbene getting a goal in the third minute. Sambi Lokonga balling out, finally getting a home and playing some football. Ross Barkley killing it. It all just seems like at the moment Luton are having a bloody good season. Now, we know that Brighton are prone to just throw in games, like every so often, like the Villa when they got done 6-1 or whatever it was, right? Every so often they just completely collapse and things go wrong. We'll talk about Brighton as well, by the way. But first, we need to talk about Luton. Adam, this is an incredible result, right? And Luton are having, they're in the cup, they're out of the relegation zone. Like, Rob Edwards is doing an incredible job.
Yeah, hugely impressive when you think about the circumstances of everyone wrote them off. They didn't buy big. They didn't necessarily have maybe the stature of being a Premier League club to begin with. But they're proving everyone wrong with the work ethic, the way they've approached it. You know, it's taken them a while to adapt to the Premier League. We remember those first few games, we were a bit worried about what they could actually do in this season. And they've brushed it to the side and starting to get some momentum. And like you say, players like Adebayo, who, when you look at his history as well, like the clubs that he's been at prior to like joining Luton, you know, he's kind of worked himself from being released at Fulham, ending up at Slough, then kind of going through these like little smaller clubs before building his reputation and then being picked up by Luton. That goes to show you that the type of players that they scout for are players that really want to make a name for themselves, maybe not necessarily at the quality at that moment in time, but they're proving it even with the kind of transfers that they're doing in this window. they're buying for the future. They're buying for what they believe is the right philosophy that fits in with their standing. And Rob Edwards, a lot of credit has to go to him. I mean, if they manage to stay up, he should be a contender for like manager of the season.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
The style of football as well is definitely appeasing. Maybe not to everyone, but certainly, I mean, they can mix it up. This is
It's
the thing.
not
Like,
terrible.
No,
It's
no, but
not
that's what I
like
mean.
it's not peak Sam Allardyce. Like I think when they break,
that's the
like
thing.
they've got players that are technically good. They can pass the ball about.
Exactly.
It's not that cynical, I don't think.
No, and they're tactically very clever. If you look at
Mhm.
what they did from the kickoff of Brighton, they knew straight away what they were weakened in terms of, like, they don't like pressure because they like to apply the pressure on other teams. When they get it, they seem to struggle. And there's certain players that when they don't have the right pass, they let those opportunities open because you saw the space kind of open up, especially when Adebayo basically buys that kind of first into I think he blocks it essentially, but yeah, he gets that possession back for Luton immediately, gets himself a bit of a nuisance in the box, so he doesn't necessarily have any influence on the ball, but when the ball goes to him, he knows where he's got to stand. And with Ogbene as well, that goal was typical of him exploiting that space, because he shouldn't have no divine right to run into that space, but he gets ahead of the goalkeeper who rushes out because there's no defenders in front of him. So you see, that's the Zerbi ball, and we know with the Zerbi it goes one of two ways. It either looks amazing because they obliterate teams, but on the other hand, like you rightly allude to, Aston Villa, it can absolutely look appalling. It can just look like it's only one way it's going to be played. So fair play to Luton. And I was looking at a fixture list. Obviously, they needed that victory because they've got some kind of tough games coming up, some big teams. But then the interesting thing is they've still got to play a lot of those teams that they're fighting alongside. So Sheffield United at home in a few weeks' time. They've got the likes of, I believe, Everton to play still at their place as well. So there's a few fixtures there that are kind of considered, I would say, big 6-pointers. But providing they go and, maybe have a respectable run in the next few games, because I think it's Man United, Arsenal they've got to play.
They've
Tottenham
got some rough
away
games
as
coming up.
well.
They've got Newcastle away. They've got Sheffield United at home, which is massive. United at home, Liverpool away, City at home, Villa at home. Then they've got Tottenham and Arsenal. There's a lot of big games coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's massive for them in that respect. So if they can get through that, and I was looking at, even if you think about Everton, not in the greatest form at the moment, they've got to play some big teams as well still. So it's going to be interesting as it goes along.
Sorry.
Or are you laughing?
United were 3-0 up. It's 3-3.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. You got to love that.
Sorry, my God. I've just been watching it. I'm like, please, Wolves, get a goal. Please, Wolves, get a goal. That is... Oh, it's 4-3 United. 4-3. Jesus Christ. This is what happens when you laugh at someone. It bites you in the arse immediately.
Just scored.
Mainu in the 97th minute. Jesus Christ, they've escaped that one. Oh my God. We're going to have to watch the highlights. Wow. I'm sorry, guys. We're recording as the game goes on, obviously. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Adam, but I got very excited then. God damn it. Never mind. But Francesco, let's talk about Brighton. De Zerbi, it's now 3 wins in 16 games for Brighton. Low key, the form is absolutely terrible. Now, is this just the fact that this is their first season in Europe? They're getting used to playing midweek weekend. Or is it people figuring out De Zerbi and him not adopting and adapting to the tactics? What do you put it down to? Because it's a little bit concerning now.
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both. They definitely, I don't think they have the depth to be competing in Europe and in the Premier League at the level they were last season yet. They had a few key injuries quite early on, likes of Mitoma and Ciso got injured quite quickly, and they're players that really impacted to their performance. They also obviously lost Caicedo, which was a huge influence in the midfield. And I think that teams also have, as you said, Adam, before, they're starting to figure out how to play against the Zerbi teams who like to invite the pressure further up into their half and then play those quick triangles quickly bring the ball up front. So I think it's a combination of both. I hope and I'm confident that Zerbi will manage to invent something and get them back on track. I'm confident because he's proving it in other situations, and I hope because I think he's a brilliant coach, and I hope that I hope one day he'll come to Juventus. That was kind of my dream when I saw him going to Brighton and the way he was performing. I was hoping that maybe he does a few years in the Premier League, does well with Brighton, and then we call him up to Juventus. That would be
I do think there'll be a
interesting to
homecoming
see.
at some point. He'll definitely be in the Serie A at some point, one of the big teams.
I think
I think it's only a matter of time, really. But yeah, I'm sure they'll turn it around. It's just a little bit of a dip there and a little bit of a like, oh, what can Brighton expect from this season? Now, obviously, if they go far in the Europa League, they won't give a crap where they finish in the Premier League because they're not going to go down, obviously. But like, you know, I mean, I think their focus could be Europa League and really push for something properly historic there. So they've got a genuine chance. I think, they've got an outside chance, haven't they? But we're going to leave Luton and Brighton there. Fantastic win for Luton. Absolutely huge. Good work, Rob Edwards. We love everything you're doing. And we're going to go to the City Ground as Arsenal 2, Nottingham Forest 1. We've done it. We've broken a few curses, right? We broke the Goodison Park curse recently, and we broke the Man City curse, and now we've broken the City Ground curse. Watching Arsenal is so bloody frustrating. We have, I think, the field tilt at one point, or our possession was like 81%. And in the first half, we had around 200 passes in their final third, and they had one in ours. Like, it was one of the most one-sided games I've ever seen. Nottingham Forest with the definition of a low block. Every team's played a low block against us this year, but that was a low block. But eventually, despite Gabriel Jesus doing his best to miss all of the chances, he scored from the impossible angle and missed the easiest chances going, which is classic Gabriel Jesus. And Bukayo Saka scoring with his right foot, which is always beautiful to see. You can see the defender trying to put him on his left, and he goes, all right, and just hits it with his right into the bottom corner, and you're like, we'll take that. Absolutely have that. But of course, with it being classic Arsenal, we still make it difficult for ourselves. Taiwo Awoniyi scores against us again. Some poor defending from Saliba. I think Saliba should do better there, but Awoniyi is very, very strong. He manages to win the ball and scores against us again. And the last few minutes of this game, the missus was trying to talk to me about something quite important. And I was like, this is just bad timing. And I was trying to make sure that we didn't concede in the last 4 minutes. And she was like looking at me like, can you just listen? I'm like, just not now. Just any time but now. Just wait for this game to finish. But thankfully, we did. The final whistle blew and she wasn't too angry at me. And we got the win. But, Adam, do you think this win puts Arsenal in a bit of good form heading into the Liverpool game? Obviously, the 5-0 win against Palace, this win against Forest, it was really important for us to get this win, I think.
Yeah, it puts you in a positive place because otherwise, Man City and Liverpool are probably running away with this at this stage now. Man City have got a game in hand as it currently stands. Even if they win that, they're still 3 points behind Liverpool as it currently stands in the table. But I'm sure that's all going to change. But yeah, I mean, it does put you in a great position going into Sunday with something that you need to get now. Now the pressure is on Arteta and on Arsenal to deliver and try and get something back if they want to be kind of considered as kind of title opportunists for this season anyway, because it's going to be difficult. If you want to be in that mix, you have to kind of make a mark now. It's all chips or nothing, basically, I would say. But yeah, like you say, really important win against Nottingham Forest, who, of late, they've been showing that they can pull off some important results. They've done quite well, I would say. But yeah, just wasn't their day in particular during the midweek. They just seemed off the pace, and Montiel was pulled apart at times defensively. He looked. Yeah. There was something quite funny on another podcast where they said, obviously, he scored the winning goal for Argentina, so nothing can eclipse that right now. But every time he's compared to anything he does, it's like, wasn't that the guy that scored the penalty at the penalty in the World Cup? What's happened to him? Like, how has he ended up at Nottingham Forest and being torn apart by
you've
Arsenal? But
yeah, he's kind of completed football. He has kind of completed football.
might as well just
but
retire.
the players,
right?
a player of theirs I was very impressed with is Murillo at the back. Is fantastic.
Good game.
What a player he is! Like, I think in a few years or in a season, 2 seasons, there are teams
Could be,
higher up the table sniffing around that guy. He looked so composed, so strong on the ball. He was fantastic. I thought very, very, very impressed with him. So yeah, great performance for him. But thank God Arsenal got the win. Saka now in a lovely bit of form, and Gabriel Jesus scoring. So I can't argue with that. But who can argue is Ben White and Zinchenko on the pitch at the end going a bit mad at each other, which I kind of love to see. Because, of course, the goal we conceded was a ball over Zinchenko's head. At some point, we need to address Zinchenko not being able to figure out the physics of a ball in the air and turn. It just happens so often. And I just know that Diogo Jota at the weekend, Liverpool are just looking at that and going, if Zinchenko plays, and he kind of has to because we've got so many injuries, that ball over the top is going to be every 5 minutes, every 30 seconds. That is going to be what they're aiming for. So I think we really need to look at how we address that. Because I think Ben White was genuinely in the right to say to him, you played him onside. You need to figure out your bloody positioning. Like,
do you think Arteta goes into Sunday's match even trying to change the formation? Do you think he'll consider Jakub Kiwior at that position?
I think he might go for Kiwior because with some games, and this is, I'm stealing this from Arseblog, which is the fantastic Arsenal podcast for anyone who's listening. But they talk about games that are Zinchenko games and not Zinchenko games. Yes. And when there's, funnily enough, when it's the big teams, they're not Zinchenko games because you need to be defensively more solid. So, like, when we played Liverpool last year and we won 3-2 at the Emirates, it was Tomiyasu who played left back. And Tomiyasu shut down Saka because Salah, because defensively he's just much more solid. He is a defender. Zinchenko, we all know, isn't really a defender, right? So, like, I think for a game like this, I would be tempted to play Kiwior left back, but I'm also very aware that he's not actually a left back. He is a left centre back, if you know what I mean. So you're kind of asking him to almost do a job that isn't his job. But I think the defensive solidity that he would give us might not be a bad idea. What I really want is Japan to be out of the Asian Cup so that we can have Tomiyasu back. But we're not in a perfect world. So I think Arteta has a decision to make because you just know Klopp is going to be aiming for that point. And especially,
that position,
you know, Salah's injured for his country, but now there's pictures of him training at Liverpool and running and stuff. So you know he's going to make an appearance at the weekend. He's definitely going to make an appearance. So I think Salah coming up against him could be scary because when we drew at Anfield last time, it was Salah who nutmegged Zinchenko that got them the first goal. That, if you know what I mean, and all the just a lot. I just think
also Klopp, like, cleverly will kind of swap Luis Diaz and potentially Jota on either side. So at one point he's going to face someone that's a bit more direct and someone that's going to use trickery as well. So it's just one of those positions where Zinchenko in particular, he can get pulled out at times. And Zinchenko, for me, has always been more of a kind of central midfielder, which is why I think, to a degree, this is why Man City sold him to Arsenal. Yeah. Because actually they didn't feel comfortable. He did a great job in terms of filling into that position, but he wasn't there for the long term. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if that gets exploited on the weekend.
I really like it. And we're a much better team when he plays. That's the problem. You look at the results and the statistics and everything, we are better when he is on the pitch. It's just that one Achilles heel that he has that happens to make us concede so many goals. And you're like, every other metric, he makes us better. It's just that one thing. And
for me, Rory, the annoying thing is Kieran Tierney. That would be the perfect solution right now for this match.
Yeah. If he was ever fit, he would have had a career at Arsenal. I just think Arteta knew that you cannot count on him for a third of the season, half of the season. Every season he will be out injured. And I think that's ultimately, I think, what's got him out the door, unfortunately. Trust me, I thought Kieran Tierney was going to be future Arsenal captain. I wanted him to be future Arsenal captain. I love the bloke. I just think the fitness issues were just too much. And now he's injured again at Sociedad. And you're like, it just, the guy's, it happens to players, doesn't it, unfortunately? But he would be, a fit Kieran Tierney would definitely do the job. I think would definitely do the job. But we're going to leave Arsenal there. I didn't mean to talk about them that much, but of course we went over. And just very quickly, Aston Villa going for a bit of a blip as well. They lose 3-1 at home. Fabian Schär just very, very lovely goals. Such a great player, all-rounder. He's just an all-rounder, very good at everything, I think.
Yeah,
but a huge win for Newcastle. Moreno, our favourite, gets an own goal, of course, and Watkins gets his goal. But Aston Villa's run of his unbeaten run at home is done. That's it. It's over. It was impressive while it lasted, but it is done. And finally, let's talk about, very quickly, Eberechi Eze getting 2 goals. And Michael Elise putting on a show. Just what lovely footballers. It's incredible. Like, Francesco, did you see this performance? They're really fishing Roy out of the shit here.
I think they were trying to advertise themselves to other clubs and say, come and get us, save us from this situation.
We're here.
I mean, we already
I think
have how brilliant both Eze and Olise are. They're pure talents that should play in much better teams. I mean, they're incredible players, and I hope that someone will pick them up at some point.
Arsenal just take one of them. I don't even care which one, just one of them. And elsewhere, Man City beat Burnley 3-1. Of course they did. And Wolves United has just finished 4-3. God damn it. And West Ham 1, Bournemouth 1. Dominic Solanke scoring again. What a season he's having. Well, guys, we are going to take a very...
Just 1 point on the Man City and Burnley. Have you seen the total aggregate in the head-to-heads?
Oh, God, this is going to...
Yeah.
It's quite depressing, but I've lost count after 2019 season. I was counting 41 goals for Man City versus Burnley's 3. So they don't have a fantastic record. In amongst that, there's been 2 back-to-back 5-0s as well. So yeah, it's just dreadful. I'm
not sure how. I know it's Man City, but I'm not sure how Company's still in a job. I don't quite understand.
I was going to raise this question: do we think Company's doing a good job?
No. Rob Edwards is doing a good job, right?
Exactly. You were comparing to what Rob Edwards is doing at Luton, and at least they're getting the results. I mean, the thing with Burnley is, yes, you can see that they're trying to do something and they're playing some nice football at moments, but they lack so much concreteness. They don't deliver in any possible way. So at some point, if they want to stay up, they'll have to change something. Either they already know that they're going to go down and they're like, okay, we know it's going to happen. Let's just make the best of the season and keep the coach, because, again, trust the process. We like he did amazing last year in the championship. So if he gets more experience under his belt, gets young players, and will get back up quite quickly, and this time will be more ready. Otherwise, if they want to stay up, I think they need to change something. And at this point, with the window closed, they cannot change the players. They can only change the coach.
Yeah. Well, I know it's new owners, but Burnley did the same with Sean Dyche, didn't they? They went down, stuck with him, and then he took them back up again, and it was a bit more solid. I know it's new owners, but maybe they've kind of gone, oh, well, it worked last time. Look, we can use the money from the Premier League, bring in some better players, and maybe we'll be more ready next time. But I don't know, it's not been much fun for Burnley fans, I imagine, this season. And they probably can't wait for it to end. But what is going to end is this part of the show, as we are done with the Premier League, I think. So we're going to take a very quick break, and we are going to come back and discuss the massive Serie A and Premier League weekends ahead. We will see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Phil Brown, and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
We are back, and it's time to finally look forward to the next weekend in Serie A, as is the game that we've been looking about for months, for weeks. We've been waiting for this fixture to appear. It's all building up nicely. Francesco, Allegri has been attempting some mind games, but not to much avail. I like how Simone Inzaghi's kind of refused to reply to him, but what have you thought of Allegri trying to get a rise out of him? He's been saying some strange things about the thief and the burglar, or I couldn't keep up with what he was trying to say.
Basically, he's trying to downplay what Juve's we've been doing so far. He says that we're the one that need to catch up, that we're going to be there, and if the occasion arises, we'll take first spot. But he's always trying to downplay our opportunities. He always wants to keep it low key, so there's no too much expectation, so that the other team doesn't come thinking that they're playing the better team, and but it's going to be I think with the form that both teams have been in, I think it's going to be an exciting game, and I think Inter have a bit of more of an edge because they have a game in hand. They know that if they get 1 point out of this game, then they win the other one, they're even more ahead. So it's going to be interesting. We've been playing quite well. I say we at Juventus. In the last few games, we've scored a lot of goals, more than we ever did in the first half of the season. And even with the Empoli, we drew, but we were playing with 10 men for most of the game, and we could have easily won that game. We were a bit unlucky to concede an amazing goal from Baldanzi, and but I think we played very well. We showed resilience, we showed determination. The players are clicking. Vlahovic is in incredible form, so we're going there to put up a fight. I hope we're not going there to just look at what Inter do. Let them play and score 2 or 3 goals.
Well, this is kind of an interesting one because Allegri has to go to win this game, right? There's no, he can't go and get a draw, like, and just be like, okay, job done, let's get out of here. Like, do you think this is something that Allegri's gonna, without sounding like too sarcastic, is it something that Allegri's gonna find difficult that you have to actually go and be on the front foot and you can't just try and score one and sit back?
Well, very difficult to say because Allegri is a very shrewd tactician in the sense that he'll also consider the fact that Inter will soon have the Champions League to play. We don't have any cups this year besides the Coppa Italia, so that gives us a bit of more of an edge. I think he will consider the fact that as long as he keeps the distance with Inter, not too we don't get too far behind them. The moment they slip up, we can get up front, and that will give us a bit more of an edge because this is a Scudetto that's for Inter to lose more than for Juve to win. So I think that he has that in mind. So on Sunday, I hope we'll go there to win, but it will really depend on how also Inter approach the game because they could be the one that also decide to sit back and wait. It was really weird on the first in the first half of the season when we played at Torino. The game almost felt like both teams were like, yeah, we're good with a draw. 1-1 is fine for both of us. We won't really try anything. Yeah. And nobody really understood why and how. So I hope this one won't be anything like that.
I think it's going to be a very, very, very different game, I imagine. But Adam, for Inter, as Francesco kind of alluded to, this isn't, obviously it's not a free hit, right? This is a massive opportunity, but they do have that game in hand. Do you think psychologically it gives them a little bit of a boost? That and the fact that Inter, I think, are playing the more kind of free-flowing, expressive football, right? Do you think they have the psychological upper hand here?
Potentially. I think they take a lot of heart of last week's result against Fiorentina, where they were missing Çalhanoğlu and Barella, for example, who were suspended. They'll be available for this match, and I think that plays a huge part in terms of how they approach it. I mean, obviously, it wasn't their best match against Fiorentina. They'll probably be the first ones to admit that it wasn't the perfect match for them, but they grounded out the results. And I think they were fully deserving on 3 points in the end. I know Fiorentina had their chances, and there could be a few controversial moments in those matches where you could bring it up and say maybe Fiorentina deserved a point out of it. But personally, I felt Inter used their gamesmanship really well in this particular match. And I think they take also a kind of note of what Juventus' result against Empoli. I think Empoli were unlucky on occasions, especially... Look, I think what would have frustrated Allegri a lot more is Arkadiusz Milik getting sent off for that stupid challenge that he did. And, you know, although Milik doesn't score a lot, he can be a bit of a nuisance in the box. And I think he will miss that presence coming off the bench potentially for these kind of big matches. Now, there's a guy in Moses Kane who he was trying to move on to Atletico. He might introduce him now into the fold, which would be fascinating to see because, at points in the season, it did look like, we were starting to see Kane get some form, and it looks like he was something of a spark for Juventus. But now that you've got maybe potentially Alcaraz now being brought in for this match, maybe as a sub, I mean, what a hell of a debut that could be for the kid. I mean, we both rate him. This could be an incredible moment for him to make a name. But as Francesco rightly alludes to, Dusan Vlahovic is on fire. He's demonstrating the form that we saw at Fiorentina. He's becoming a nuisance. We know he can be a bit of a shit house when it comes to defenders marking him as well, going down easily for challenges, and, just making himself known to those defenders, right? But I think Inter will approach this in the same manner that they have done this season. They'll look to outplay the opposition. They'll look to play out the back. And, I think they'll try and dominate that midfield. I think the midfield battle is going to be the fascinating bit about this match because we know about both offensively, about how Thuram and Martinez are dangerous no matter which combination you go through. And yeah, I think this is going to be a real test for defence of Juventus. But I think the key battle is going to be that midfield. Who's going to dominate who's going to create the most opportunities in this match? It could be one that Allegri plays out for a draw. He won't admit it, but he will go for a draw. And I think he'll be happy if he goes out of the San Siro with 1 point. But for Inzaghi, a draw wouldn't be a bad thing. It would mean that they haven't conceded. I think the problem is that what we've started to find with Inzaghi in particular is he's starting to try and win these head-to-heads a lot more. He's trying to dominate it. He's, there's been in the past where Inzaghi teams even would dominate the play, but just wouldn't get the result. Whereas now we're starting to see him kind of grind out these results. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if they try and scrape out a 1-0 win. That's all they need at the end of the day. Just need a win.
I think the main thing is that Inter have a lot of strings to their bow. I think if they want to grind out a 1-0 win, they can do it. If they want to go and win 4-5-0, they can do it. If they want to play fantastic football, they can do it. If they want to play defensive football, they can do it. I feel like they're really a very adaptable team, and that is just coaching from Inzaghi and obviously the commitment of the players. But I feel like we're really seeing whereas with Juventus it feels like Allegri has one move or one kind of idea. I feel like Inter are able to adapt to opponents, and they're able to adapt mid-game and be like, okay, no, this is a game that we do need to just grind out. Okay, we go into grind out mode. So I feel like the fact that Inter have a few more strings to their bow could really make it a lot more difficult for Juventus. But I think this, as with Inter, always, the battle is in their heads and in the San Siro. Yeah. And if it starts badly, the San Siro gets nervous very, very quickly. I've been there and it gets very fucking nervous. So I feel like if it starts badly, then you can see Pazza Inter starting to come out and you're like, oh God, where's this going to go? So I think it's all psychological. It's all psychological, but it's going to be a fantastic game. It's going to be a fantastic game. And Alcaraz, very quickly, I'm super excited to see what he can do in Serie A. Like Francesco, you were asking us about him, and he's for Southampton. I just remember when he came off the bench a few times, and just all of a sudden he was running through defenses, tearing teams apart. I remember the game at the Emirates when our kind of title challenge started to disappear, and he just ran through us, and we were like, where the frig has this guy come from? Just really dynamic, aggressive, attacking player, technically fantastic. I think in that midfield or just behind the strikers at Juve, he could be very, very exciting. Just a bit more of a forward threat from that midfield. Because I feel like we've talked about McKennie doesn't quite have the output that an attacking midfielder needs. I feel like Alcaraz could kind of give you a few more goals from midfield. It could be a really, really interesting one. That also a very interestingly timed story today that Rabiot is apparently joining Inter on a free at the end of the season. I don't know how true that is, but it was very, very interestingly timed. So whoever leaked that knows exactly what they're doing, I think. But I'm going to push us all, because it's a big game, I'm going to push us all for a prediction. Francesco, your score prediction, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you saying?
Very tough. I want to say 2-2.
2-2. I'll take that. Score draw. I'll take that. Adam?
So I am going to go for 2-1 Inter.
2-1 Inter. Nice. I'm going to go for an Inter win. I'm going to say, sorry, Francesco, I'm going to go 3-1. I'm going to say Inter get the lead, and then they get another one just at the end as Juve are pushing. So I'm going to say 3-1 Inter. We apologise, Francesco. We will be talking about it on Monday, and we can help you, deal with it afterwards or celebrate. We know. Who knows?
We'll see.
But else, I don't know if I'm on a delay. Anyway, elsewhere in Serie A, I don't know what's going on. Elsewhere in Serie A, the games you want to talk about: Atalanta, Lazio. Scamacca scoring for Atalanta last time. Atalanta back in the top 4. They're quietly having a very good season. Francesco, Lazio having a very disappointing season. How do you see this game going? Do you think Atalanta can keep pushing for Champions League?
I think they've been playing very well. They've picked up the form. They've been a bit up and down the beginning of the season, but since Scamacca has been fit up front, I think they've been playing quite more. A bit more offensive football, and they've been a bit more solid. And I think they will definitely push for the Champions League spot. I really rate Cook Miners in the midfield. He's been linked to Juventus a few times. I do hope it's a player we try and get, because I think he would be a good addition to our team. Lazio, as we already discussed last time, I think the missing Milinkovic-Savic, they probably underestimated how much he had an impact on the team. The Immobile hasn't performed this year as he's been making us used to in the past season. So it'll be an interesting game, because Atalanta sometimes they completely miss the game and they end up losing 3-0 randomly. But if they do get the right approach and manage to get the first goal, then they could easily also win 4-0. It's really a flip of the coin, I feel, a game Lazio-Atalanta, especially with the form that both teams have been.
Yeah, no, well, that's what makes it so interesting, right? And Adam, Lazio, they're only 2 points behind Atalanta, but they are all the way down in 7th because it is so tight up there. Yeah. They're unbeaten in 5, 4 wins and a draw. They're not playing the most exciting football. They're not having the most exciting season. But do you think Lazio can come here and be like, right, let's try and get something, blow this Europe race wide open?
Yeah, I mean, we can also kind of say Atalanta are not the most consistent of sides. Sometimes they can go hot and cold as well. So this is a good opportunity for Sarri to get something over Gasperini here. I feel like Lazio will win this match potentially, because I know for all the qualities that Atalanta have, they have these moments, unfortunately, in them where they concede sloppy goals, and they can do that. So I think it's going to be a very end-to-end game, I would be brutally honest. I know Lazio probably will be the most disappointed, though, when it comes to transfer business right now, because they were linked with a few players. Ryan Kent, for example, was rumoured earlier today to be joining them, and he's decided not to take that opportunity to join them. They were linked with Morgan Whittaker from Plymouth Argyle. Again, that hasn't come to fruition. So I think there was some genuine attempts to, obviously boost this squad with some attacking flair, but it hasn't happened. So they're going to have to work with the squad that they've got. And I know Sarri hasn't been best pleased with the business that they've done from the beginning of the season, let alone
fairly open
now. So
he's been fairly open about it. But also Gasperini came out this week saying that Scamacca needs to run more and needs to be giving more
that's
effort.
The usual, though, isn't it?
That's just Gasperini, isn't it? You need to give him more of those steroids, Gasp, that you've been giving everyone else for the past 10 years. You need to give him a few more of them and see if it improves his running stats. But friend of the show, Tom, West Ham fan, sent me that link actually and was like, I told you he was a fat, useless piece of shit. He was like, I told you he was a shit player. Really not a big fan of Scamacca at all. So, yeah, he felt good that Gasparini has backed him up. Elsewhere in Serie A, before we move on to the Premier League, we have very quickly, I'm going to run through the fixtures. Let's do it.
Sure.
On Friday, we have Lecce taking on Fiorentina. Saturday, Empoli taking on Genoa. Udinese taking on Monza. Frosinone hosting Milan. Bologna taking on Sassuolo. Now, Sassuolo we wanted to talk about a little bit because they're massively in trouble. They need a win here. They're only 1 point above the relegation zone. They've got one win in their last 5. Francesco, Dionisi, people were quite excited about him when he came in, but he's definitely not pushed Sassuolo on at all. Like, do you think, has the time gone for them to make a change? Is it too late now, or do you think there's still time for them to turn the season around?
It's a tricky position because they're in a position in the table where it could easily get very scary for them, and you don't want to get into a situation where you're reacting to being in the bottom 3 and you have to kind of I feel like they're not the same, but they're a bit like Leicester was last year. They need to figure something out quickly, because otherwise they're gonna get into that slump where it becomes difficult to get out of, and you can end up finishing in the bottom 3 end of the season without knowing it. Where when you started the season thinking, okay, well maybe we'll be in the top 10 and we'll push a bit further up. We'll see. I don't really know. It's difficult to explain why they're not performing that well. Sassuolo always had and always has been a team that score a lot of goals, but they concede a lot of goals also. That's always been kind of the issue, even when De Zerbi was there, even when Di Francesco was the coach before. It's always been kind of the imprint that Sassuolo have. But I think the fact that this year I think Dionisi is just having a hard time figuring out the defense to make them be at least a little bit more solid. And up front, I mean, Berardi is still performing, but they don't have the same firepower they used to. Pinamonti is good, but he's not Scamacca. Then Raspadori, they hasn't really been replaced with anyone. So I think it's they lost also Maxim Lopez, who went left.
Yeah.
And he gave quality to the midfield. So I think it's a bit again a difficult situation for Sassuolo.
Yeah, I think, and even a player like Lauriente, who was so good for them last season, and people were getting so excited about, is having a very, very quiet season. Again, it feels like it's just not quite clicking there. But to allude to their defense, they've conceded 37 goals in 21 games. The only team that's conceded more are Cagliari and Salernitana, of course it is. But Sassuolo definitely leaky at the back. And Bologna looking to try and get a little bit of form back. They've only got one win in their last 5. Of course, they got that huge draw away to Milan last weekend. Adam, this is a great opportunity for Bologna to kind of kickstart their season again and maybe get into the top 4, depending how it goes between Atalanta and Lazio.
Yeah, 100%. They really do need to get some victories on the board now. I think they've done some clever business so far in this window. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's Jens Christiansen. They brought him back, so blast from the past. But it'll be fascinating to see how Bologna kind of push on for the second half of the season, because I think they've of late kind of slightly disappointed. But that performance against Milan, I think, gives you a lot of hope about they can turn this around. I think they displayed kind of like fighting qualities, is what I would describe it as. Because whilst you've still got Joshua Zirkzee still at the fold, I think there was a lot of hype around him in this window, and the fact they've managed to keep hold of him is a massive achievement, I would say. Because I don't think if you would have sold him in these last few days or hours, you struggle to get someone that could do the same job. So they've done massively well in that respect, and I think that should be applauded. So, fair play. But yeah, also there was rumours about Thiago Motta being linked with Barcelona job because of his close relationship with Deco.
Don't go.
He's already said. Apparently, he's already said that he wants to stay because he believes in the project. So this is going to be interesting to see if we see Bologna maybe in Europa champion, like some sort of competition next season. That'd be beautiful, wouldn't it? So,
we need it. Bologna in the Europa League. Yes, bloody please. Elsewhere on the Sunday, we have Torino, who've done some very interesting business this window, taking on Salernitana. Napoli taking on Verona. As we said, Atalanta, Lazio. And then the big one, Inter taking on Juve, and it finishes on Monday with Ranieri going back to Rome for the millionth time as Cagliari take on Roma. Always beautiful to see him back in the capital, though. They always welcome him. So, should we do transfer business in Serie A now and then do Premier League?
Yeah,
it kind of makes sense.
Let's do that. Yes.
So, Serie A transfer business. Let's talk about the teams we've been most impressed with, or signings we've been most impressed with. And I wanted to kick us off with. Now, we were kind of joking about Verona having a fire sale and selling all their best players, with Ngonje going and Hein making the move and Doig leaving. Yeah. My God, that is a long list. Terracciano and Hongler and Juric and Saponara. I could keep going. But I think they've brought in some very, very exciting young players, as Verona often do, right? This is a team kind of not as talked about as Sassuolo, but a lot of players who go on to do well in Serie A started at Verona, or at least went through Verona. So I feel like they kind of have a bit of a track record for this. But the players that I'm really excited about, Stefan Mitrovic, the young winger from Red Star, there's been a lot of people quite excited about him. I don't know if he's going to hit the ground running or not, but a player who over the next few years maybe, or the next couple of seasons, could do really well. A player we've seen in the Premier League in Ruben Vinagre, who was at Wolves for a while. He's coming from Sporting, not Sporting Lisbon, sorry.
Yeah.
Sporting as a left back, maybe a bit of experience there to add to the midfield. But Adam, you said you've been quite excited by a Polishman entering the league.
Yeah. I mean, it was rumoured that his agent was kind of touting his services across Serie A clubs. So, mainly predominantly the likes of Salernitana, because he was linked with a move down there last summer when a certain Paulo Sousa was at that club. But Karol Swiderski confirms a free transfer from FC Charlotte in MLS, and moves to Hellas Verona. So I think that's a really clever bit of business for someone that knows his kind of way around goal. He can score plenty of important goals, but good goals as well. He can make himself a bit of a kind of target man at times as well, but he's really clever on his feet. That's the thing. So I think, as long as he gets going at Hellas Verona, then he's got a hell of a chance to potentially even transfer going forward, because we know Hellas Verona like to sell their players. So I think great move for both in this respect. And, if he scores a few goals that keeps him up, then Hellas Verona fans will love him, right? So, but I've also noticed that they've also confirmed in the last few hours is Fabien Cantonze from Nantes on loan. He's a right back. So, that's an interesting bit of business from Hellas Verona. So it's been a very active window. I can't recall a team selling that many players and still being able to recruit as many through the door. Maybe Portsmouth, maybe a few years ago.
I feel like Harry Redknapp's definitely involved somewhere with that one. If that's the question, the answer is Harry Redknapp. But I was looking at Swiderski's numbers, 25 goals across 2 seasons in the MLS. It's pretty good. That's not a bad record. So I think if he can get 8, 10 between now and the end of the season, that would be 12, absolutely huge. So, absolutely fantastic. Francesco, I wanted to ask you about one signing that has excited me in particular. Roma doing some very interesting business, in particular, one of Italy's hottest young prospects, Tommaso Baldanzi, making the move from Empoli to Roma. This is a huge move, and it could be incredible, right?
It's a very interesting move both for Roma and for the player, because of course for Baldanzi he's joining a club which is going to play in Europe, is going to give him international exposure, and for Roma it shows that the club has a vision and they're trying to work towards a goal, or they have some kind of an idea of what they want to do think that letting go of Mourinho kind of worried a lot of the fans and a lot of people looking at Roma. They were like, okay, what are they going to do now? But bringing in someone like Baldanzi, a young prospect, Italian prospect, I think it shows that they're in the process of doing something with for the long term. So I'm excited to see how he's going to perform. I think it's going to be a good match for Roma.
I'm really excited to see where he fits into that team. It just adds a bit more attacking flair and a bit of spark to a team that's maybe been lacking it a little bit. Adam, are there any other signings or any other teams that have impressed you with their business across the window?
The main ones that spring to mind, obviously, we mentioned about Alcaraz. That's a bit of business that I was really impressed by. There's a few loans from Torino to other clubs. So Jan Karamo has gone to Montpellier, for example. Demirbeck has just joined Frosinone, as we mentioned. Well, we mentioned offline, didn't we? But the other one was, for me, Belotti joining Fiorentina. Obviously, huge kind of transfer for, I would say, for him rather than necessarily clubs. I think there's a bit of unease from Fiorentina. I think Fiorentina wanted to make better signatures than what they ended up with, but that could be a bit of good business for Fiorentina because of the style of play that Italiano likes to play, obviously with wing backs, and obviously they were missing a target man, which I think sometimes, like, Belotti is deceptive, isn't he? He looks like a target man, but he doesn't necessarily play like a target man. So I don't know if he is a target man and if he will suit Fiorentina. But that's the bit of business that I think could be interesting to see. If he can score a few goals, then, you know, that's another contender for that top four mix as well. Just ones on Calgary. Yerry Mina's been confirmed on loan, so that could be a really good bit of business for that defensive line. They obviously also confirmed Gaetano from Napoli as well on loan, so that's another bit of business. They did try and get Barak from Hellas Verona. Oh, sorry, from Fiorentina even, sorry. But yeah, that fell through, unfortunately.
Someone needs to save my boy. Someone needs to save my boy. It's not working for him at Fiorentina. It's not working for him.
The only other one that I was going to raise, I don't know if you know about this, Rory, but Gabriel Strafezza leaving Lecce for Como, which I thought was a bit of a surprise bit of business because that leaves maybe arguably Lecce a bit short in that attacking department.
What are they thinking?
That's a strange one.
What are they thinking? That blew my mind,
right?
That move. He's someone who's been a fairly consistent goal threat for them. It must be money, that. Odd. It must be, because Como are obviously backed by Thierry Henry and Fabregas and that American consortium. There must be, like, they must have doubled his wages or something, because that is such a weird move. It's such a weird move. I could not get my head around that. The only one I wanted to mention was Mbai Niang is back in Serie A. It's been a long time.
Empathy.
Yeah, I was just looking through his transfer record. Is Torino to Milan, Milan to Torino, Torino to Milan, Torino to Stade Rennais, Stade Rennais to Milan, Torino to Milan. Genoa's chucked in there a few times. What a career he's had. But he has popped up at, where's he just joined? I can't keep up with him. Empoli. He's popped up at Empoli.
Yeah.
So it'll be fantastic to see Niang back in the league. Francesco, any other signings that you're excited to see apart from Alcaraz, of course?
I'm going through them because I didn't really manage to follow all of them. I remember seeing, I think we mentioned Vitinha on loan to Genova. I think it's an interesting one, making use of the big money they got from selling Dragusin to Spurs. And then Kumbula to Sassuolo. We were talking about the fact that
that's
the
an
defense
interesting
was
one.
a bit shaky. I think it's an interesting
They
one.
also got Josh Doig, didn't they? Josh Doig for 6 million. So yeah,
maybe that is him trying to fix that incredibly leaky defense.
Potentially.
We will see, but we're going to leave Serie A there for now, I think, because I'm very aware of time, and we're very quickly going to do the Premier League. Don't worry, there's not much action in the Premier League. There's not much transfers in the Premier League, so it shouldn't take us long. But of course, this weekend, it is all about the massive game. Sunday is going to be such a good day, hopefully. At least a day of good football, regardless. But of course, it's all about Arsenal taking on Liverpool at the Emirates. Of course, in the FA Cup last time, Liverpool won 2-0. Arsenal were in that phase of not being able to score, scoring 1 goal in 62 shots or whatever it was. It feels like we've maybe put that to bed. Maybe we're in better form. Liverpool, I would argue, in much better form than us. But I'm actually not going to talk about this because I don't want to think about it yet. Adam, how do you see this game going? You're impartial. I can't go past my heart, unfortunately.
I think it's going to be a very open match, personally. I think it depends on what team decides to turn up, right, Rory? We've talked about the potential exploitive activity that Liverpool could deploy and whether we see Salah return for this match. But yeah, I can see this being a draw. I think a draw will be what will happen because they'll just try and cancel each other. And yeah, I think, it probably would suit both parties, I would say, on average of that, basically. But Arteta might be a bit gutted. I think he's going to go for the win, personally.
Oh, we are gonna go for it. But if you offered me a draw now, I would bite your hand off because if we lose this, we're out of the title race. Effectively,
yeah, exactly.
I think it is that big. It's a season-defining game. Francesco, can you give me some reason for optimism? How do you think this game is going to
go? Well, you're playing at home, so I think it's definitely always gives you a bit of an edge. But I think Adam has it right on seeing a draw for the game. Arsenal is you were saying Arsenal and Arteta are going to go and try and win the game. Liverpool are going to do the same, so it's going to be quite an open game between the two. I don't think Liverpool are going to come in and think, we're going to try and have a draw and salvage a point or anything of the sort. I don't think it ever happens. Like in the Premier League, I don't feel like the teams are ever playing for a draw. Very rare that they do. If they do, it's like the bottom of the league that sometimes they aim at having that. But otherwise, it's always have a feeling that when I'm watching games in the Premier League, all the teams are always trying to win, regardless of the position or who they're playing, which I think it's quite makes it so entertaining.
Yeah, well, we will. Like, this game always has goals, so it was 3-2 and 2-2 last season, right? There's always goals in this game, so I expect that my resting heart rate is going to be through the roof. I feel for that 90 minutes. I'm already not looking forward to it. But
just quickly on that, do we think Klopp has a bit of dilemma in terms of right back, whether he introduces Trent Alexander-Arnold or does he keep with Sonny Bradley? Because I know Trent has his moments against Arsenal, doesn't he? He seems to get sometimes exploited. I don't know if he's going to play him in midfield or whether he leaves him on the bench to come on as a second half sub.
I think it's interesting because Martinelli against Trent has been a problem for Klopp every single time because Martinelli loves getting in. If you leave space in behind, Martinelli's just going to absolutely rinse you. So I think, it's a big decision. I think we might see him come on towards the end like we did against Chelsea. I think we might see him just like maybe Conor Bradley, weirdly defensively more solid, having him just like kind of continue. He's in a good run of form. Let's see if we can keep this going. See if he steps up to the occasion. But I would be quite happy if Trent started, honestly. I like Trent as a player. I love him. I think he's revolutionised the right back role. It's a travesty he doesn't start for England. But I'd be happy if Martinelli was up against him, that being said. So I think it'll be interesting. Like we have Zinchenko, they have Trent, I suppose. So there is the kind of weakness
maybe he'll
there.
Start in midfield, as you were saying.
Maybe putting him midfield and having those passes just pinging around everywhere. I don't like it. Good. Let's move on. I don't want to think about it. So elsewhere in the Premier League, it all starts off on Saturday midday at Goodison Park. Everton taking on Tottenham. Then the first of the 3:00 kickoffs, we have Brighton taking on Crystal Palace. That rivalry, a good opportunity for Brighton to get back to winning ways. Crystal Palace fresh off a win. Then we have Newcastle hosting Luton Town. Burnley taking on Fulham. And the late kickoff on Saturday. It's the we got relegated because they didn't turn on goal line technology derby as Sheffield United take on Aston Villa. And on Sunday, we have Battle of the Uniteds as Man United take on West Ham United, Chelsea hosting Wolves, Bournemouth hosting Forest, and then Brentford hosting Man City. I'm hoping that Mopai can wind up someone enough at Man City to get them sent off. Hopefully KDB or Rodri. Rodri, please. I would like your target to be Rodri. So, guys, in the transfer window in the Premier League,
Not a
nothing's
lot
happened.
to write about. Yeah, Calvin Phillips has been a highlight going to West Ham.
Yeah, that is an intriguing move. Although apparently today he was at fault for the first goal. He didn't have a great start, apparently, in the game this evening. But I think a player who really with a proper run in a team, I think that could be a really clever signing for West Ham. What confuses me is they've sold Fornals and Ben Rama, and I don't think they've bought anyone in.
Not that I can see. Nothing's been confirmed as of yet. If anything, it's Bournemouth so far. I've confirmed someone coming in, and there's been a few loanees going out as well. But yeah, today's been very bare. I mean, I think is it Adam Wharton confirmed from Blackburn Rovers to Crystal Palace. That's been kind of a big deal because I think the fee's rumoured to be around 30 million for that one. One of the things that I highlighted on the last pod was Morgan Rogers from Middlesbrough. He's transferred to Aston Villa. I think that's a really shrewd bit of business by Aston Villa there. But yeah, I'm struggling. I'm looking down the list, and there's not a lot of names, a lot of loanees of like younger development players, shall we say, in this mix. I mean, Sergio Reguilon. That we're scraping the barrel here.
Where's he gone?
He's gone to Brentford on loan from Spurs.
Right,
but yeah, that's what I mean by we're scraping the barrel. Because there's not a lot going on.
I think Morgan Rogers is an interesting one though, because obviously Middlesbrough having a really good season. I think he's an exciting player. It'll be interesting to see how Unai Emery uses him and where he fits in there. I think it might just give him another option. That's quite an exciting one.
Although I have just noticed Hamed Traore. Do you remember he was at Sassuolo? On loan from he was at Bournemouth. He's on loan to Napoli, which I must have missed. So
it's all going into Italy. They're making the most before this growth decree disappears. I don't know what it is, but they're trying to get all the paperwork over the line, like bring everyone in. I don't know.
It's even weirder because he was ruled out of the Africa Cup of Nations with Ivory because he contracted malaria. And now he's been loaned to Napoli, which means he's fine, but it's a bit weird. I don't really understand the dynamics of how that works out.
I mean, there's a few players when AFCON comes up, they're like, actually, I've done my hamstring. I can't do this one. I feel like Mohamed Salah might be one of them. I feel like he definitely ducked out of it. So yeah, I think there's a few players that are kind of prone to that. But yeah, guys, I think that is that's all the Premier League. That's all the Serie A.
Yep.
That's the end of the Premier League and Serie A and transfer deadline day until the summer. And we are now going to take another quick break and come back with Tiki Taka Toe. This time I'm going to try and defeat Francesco on Serie A knowledge. I'm coming back for revenge.
This time it's to Adam and Rari. You guys have to play each other.
Oh, is this going to... okay. Yeah, let's do that.
If you want to. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
See you in a minute.
My name is Massimo Morales, and you are listening to Anglo-Italian podcast.
And here we are. It is time for the Tiki Taka Toe quiz. And this time, as Francesco directed and handily pointed out, it needs to be me versus Adam. So let's do it. On the grid, for people who aren't watching, we have along the top, we have Atalanta, Inter, and Milan. And along the side, we have Belgium, Torino, and Juventus. Now, Adam, I'm going to let you go first. Where would you like to go, and who are you going with?
I'm going to go Milan and Juventus in that bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to go for Leonardo Bonucci.
Now, you need to... Is it double N Bonucci or double C?
Double C, I'm pretty sure.
Bonucci, there we go. I can never get the double letters right in Italian. Okay, I'm going to go Inter and Torino, and I'm going to go Caramo.
Very good.
Very good one.
Let's do it right. So I'm going to go Milan, Torino, Tommaso Pobega, even.
Pobega, very good shout. Okay, Pobega. So I need to go for the top right corner, which is Milan and Belgium, and I'm going to go Sailor-makers.
Oh, very good.
Very good. Not
So
easy
that
to spell.
forces me to go Atalanta and Juventus, or do I go a bit snide and hope you don't get it? Just trying to think, who can I go with? Just trying to think of players that played both. Oh, this is getting a bit more difficult.
I'm going to put the pressure on you, Adam, and say,
Yeah,
I know a
okay.
player from Atalanta and Juventus.
They're typical, isn't it? Oh, do I concede it?
No, I don't want to win with your conceding. Don't concede anything. I don't want to win by conceding.
But I'm just trying. I'm just really struggling. I'm really struggling to think of a player that has played for Atalanta and Juventus. So I think you've done me there already straight away. Because I had.
Well, you need to put in one, otherwise it's going to come up as yours.
Yeah, I will go. Do you know what? I'm just going to call you bluff. Go Inter and Juventus and Pirlo.
Inter, Juventus, Pirlo. Okay. And I'm going to go Atalanta, Juve, Demiral.
Good.
Yes.
Very
Yeah,
good.
very good.
Boom,
Well
nice.
done.
I've
Boom.
redeemed myself.
Well
I'm
done.
so glad I had that in the back pocket. Well, there we go. I've got my first win. I'm off and running. We've all won one now, right? I think Francesco beat me.
Yeah.
Adam beat me. Now I've won. Beautiful. Well, guys,
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us. A pleasure as always. I'm going to stop sharing that screen. There we go. Nice. Thanks for joining us. Pleasure as always. We will be back on Monday evening for our Monday Euro review show. Hopefully, it will be a happy me. And I can't say a happy Francesco. I'm sorry, Francesco. I really hope him to win it. So I hope it's not too bad for you. That's the best I can do. I'm sorry. That's the best I can do. But you can follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, and on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button down here somewhere, and tell your friends, give us a rating on your podcast app of choice. Guys, anything to say before I send these guys home with a little bit of a lengthy quote?
Have a great weekend. Enjoy your football. And if you can, if you've got a TikTok account, please follow us. That'd be really appreciated so we can get some lives on there.
Beautiful. Francesco, we will see you next week. Anything to say before you go?
Forza Juve.
Forza Juve, of course. Fino alla fine and all that, right? Exactly. So we are going to finish with a quote, of course, from Jurgen Klopp. We've not really had a chance to do much of a tribute. So a quote from him that really put a smile on my face. Sometimes people ask me why I am always smiling. Even after we lose a match, sometimes I'm still smiling. It's because when my son was born, I realised that football is not life or death. We're not saving lives. Football is not something that should spread misery and hatred. Football should be about inspiration and joy, especially for children. I've seen what a little round ball can do for the lives of so many of my players. The personal journeys of players and so many of my boys are absolutely incredible. The difficulties I faced as a young man in Germany were nothing compared to what they had to overcome. There were so many moments when they could have easily given up, but they refused to quit. They're not gods, they just simply never gave up on their dreams. Thank you for joining us. We will see you on Monday. Ciao, a dopo.
Ciao, ciao.